Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Podcast, presented by the Daily Pal.
This is Pranuti,
Amit,
and Purva, and we're from the dailypow.com, a Bombay-specific food and culture site, and this is our weekly podcast, The Podcast. Now, in this episode, we're going to be talking about rooftop bars and cafes, and this is an installment of Bombay Binge in which we discuss food in the city. So stay tuned for Bombay Binge.
Bombay Binge.
So we're discussing rooftop bars because there's actually been an increase in the number of these rooftop venues. Amit actually went to one recently. It's called Sway, and it's opened in Atria Mall. Atria suddenly sort of seeing a lot of
well, they're trying.
F&B.
There's an attempt to revive it.
Only
I don't know how
one
it's
floor of
successful.
Atria. The
Basically,
rest
the
of
top
it is
floor
quite dead.
with
Right.
all the F&B establishments. The rest of it is like all the shops. I don't think they haven't really attracted too many new shops there.
Right.
So the rest of it seems quite deserted. But
The
actually,
food court type places.
It's not even a food court.
It's above that.
It's right up at the top level, and there've been a few recent openings there. Like there's the Spare Kitchen, this fusion restaurant from Juhu has opened there, and the two most recent ones actually is this nightclub called Mata Hari and
right, which I've heard is actually pretty legit.
and Sway, which is SWEY, this new rooftop bar, which is why we're discussing this. And I was actually quite amazed to find that there was, when I left Sway at about midnight, there was a line outside Mata Hari.
Right.
And like there were people, there was a crowd outside Atria, people waiting for their cars, which is getting down. So, and Sway was actually full. Now it's some 14,000 square feet. They had closed up, I think, just one small section. But I was quite amazed that unlike in some restaurants, you go there and they have a certain slightly raised level where they said it was all reserved, and I got there pretty early, so I was wondering whether it's one of those things that just telling you it's reserved and when it's actually not. But it did actually get full. Like the whole place was completely packed, and they have a whole variety of tables. They have like long tables, they have like high tables. It's like just this variety of for different groups. Basically, you can be like a really large group and you can go there. And I think it just goes to show that people in the city are just desperate for rooftop places. I mean, because it's such a hot city overall.
I also think that people are desperate for space.
Yeah. And they're so rare, right? I mean, it's hard to find, I guess, a terrace venue in this.
What is the view from Sway? I mean, if you got
So it doesn't
there
have a
early,
very exciting view. I mean, if you've been to Atria Mall, you know that
Basically
it's
overlooking Annie Besant
it
Road.
looks out. One part of it obviously overlooks out the road.
so it's not tall enough to have a sea
It's
view.
not. It's like some 4 levels or
Stories,
something.
right,
But
okay.
ironically, where I was sitting, I could see in the distance the Four Seasons, which of course has
the other one.
It has air.
Right.
Probably one of the most popular rooftop venues in the vicinity.
Yeah.
And but if you just look at it, I mean, I realized that I've actually been to most rooftop bars in the city, except I haven't to the other 2 new ones. There's something called Upstairs
In
in
Tardeo.
Tardeo.
Right.
And then there's
We should mention that you are the bar reviewer for the Daily Power.
Well, some of them have been around for a while, so I think that's the reason why. But there's something called Verbena in Kamala Mills,
Lowprel,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Now, I haven't been there yet, but it's apparently a brew pub as well.
It is.
But they haven't started serving their brews yet. So I think that I'll wait till...
Yeah, I
happens.
imagine, like I have an instinct about restaurants and bars, and I imagine Verbena is going to be really popular. I mean, if you just take Escobar as an example, Escobar, which is in Bandra, which also had a fire and then it reopened. I have never been an Escobar fan, and you'd think that, in Bandra where there are such tiny places, I never go, but Escobar is also equally popular because they have that space and you just step out and it's like,
and it has no view. I mean, look onto all these under construction buildings. You're looking around the Linking Road, which is not exactly the most picturesque place.
Yeah.
And I think that goes to show that some places are just popular because
just
they are
open
rooftop
and
venues. I mean, there's also Cafe Terra in Executive Enclave.
Yeah, Cafe
which
Terra has decent food though. They have a lot of events, but you're right in terms it's not a very exciting view, and it's also like a well-priced space. So it has a couple of factors that work for it.
But if I want to go to a rooftop bar in Bandra, I always go to Oceana, which is the Rang Sharda, which again is very simply done. It has checked tablecloths and plastic chairs, and the food is average, and I don't even think that it's that cheap, but I think that people just like the fact that you can
It's
sit
a
outdoors.
very large terrace.
It's a very large terrace, and when the ceiling is lit up, then it has a fantastic view.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean,
Otherwise, you're just overlooking reclamation, which is
Yeah,
quite drab.
exactly.
But at night, when details are obscured,
Yeah.
then it doesn't matter what you're overlooking. It's just nice to be in an
but
open space.
It does overlook the ceiling, and
Right.
when they do light up the ceiling, it actually looks quite nice, and it is a nice view. And you also seem to be having like a pretty big range in terms of the kind of like you have budget places and you go to fancy places. Obviously, Air, which has a panoramic view of Bombay. But again, Air has got this thing. A lot of what you see is under construction stuff, and you also see, ironically, the slums that overlook. I mean, they're right next to the Four Seasons, which they tried actually very hard to obscure by having a big wall outside the hotel. But then the most popular venue is this place where you actually can see all of it, and that's, of course, there's that, and there's also Dome.
Well, there's a Silo in the same area.
Yeah, there's also a Silo in the same,
So
which
Low
I haven't
Parel
been
has
to.
a couple now. Well, if you count Low Parel, that has quite a few now.
Yeah.
A Silo I have been to. They are very active at doing all these themed nights and all of that. So again, you can see a partial of the ceiling on one side of it, and the other side is just like the rest of Worli.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also one of those posh. I would sort of equate it with Air in terms of its pricing and what it offers in terms of food and beverage.
Yeah.
And,
but Air, I think, has a lot of business crowd that comes. Some people having a lot of meetings there. A Silo seems more like a party place.
It is.
And it's at the St. Regis, right?
Yeah, it is at the St. Regis, but Asilo is actually managed by JSM, which also owns Shiro.
Yeah.
So it's run separately, but obviously you have to enter the hotel to go up there. And a lot of their parties are by invite only. But you're right, it is more of a party destination, but it's also a great place for like a sunset, So Air and Asilo, great. Air has happy hours, actually. I'm not entirely sure about Asilo. So if you actually want to check out Air, a good time to go is between, I would think, 4 and 8 or 5
5 and 8,
is
I think,
when
is
they
the happy
have
hours,
their...
yeah. And Asilo actually reminded me a bit of Dome.
Yeah.
Amongst the fancy places that's been around the longest.
Yeah.
And of course that looks over the Queen's Necklace. And
which
Marine
has the
Drive.
best view,
Yeah,
I
which
would
has the
say.
best view. And I have to say that out of all of the fancy ones, I
Yeah.
really like Dome the best.
Yeah.
They also have quite nice drinks and
Right.
stuff. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of budget places too, and in town, in fact, in South Bombay, just in the Colaba area, there's so many. There you have Bayview and you have a Cafe Marina, which are right next to each other.
Yeah, and they've been around for a long time.
Well,
Like Bayview
Marina-
was quite a
yeah.
college hangout.
I remember like going to Bayview in the 90s, and but
Yeah.
Marina only opened I think about 5 years ago. I mean, it's an old Hotel Sea Palace, but I think the son or somebody tried to revive it by starting Marina. It was a great idea, and
It has a fantastic view.
Fantastic view, and I feel kind of bad for Bayview because I remember I used to go there all the time, and then when Marina opened, I've just completely stopped going to Bayview because, I mean, Marina
has an expansive
view. It overlooks the harbour. You can also see the Dome of the Taj in the distance. You can see the gateway. So that's like.
Yeah, and Bayview has a sort of roof covering it. I mean, it is open, but they have a partial roof, so that's sort of gives you a feeling of being enclosed. That way Marina is quite open and it's more comfortable.
Would you
Though I
say
have
that-
to say that the food is very okay
Yeah,
at Marina,
Marina
and the
doesn't
drinks
have
are a bit
fantastic
overpriced.
food. Exactly. All these places are slightly pricey, also because I think they're in hotels.
Right.
So they try and, charge you a little extra, like with Oceana. And then, of course, there's Cloud9, which is in Hotel
Which
Godwin.
is my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to They have the wrought iron furniture.
They have the
Yeah,
wrought
wrought
iron
iron
furniture.
furniture.
It's very old school. It looks like it's out of the 80s.
Right.
And they have these strange fake columns.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that serve absolutely no purpose. And again, it's a great view because it overlooks Colaba area. The sort of the 3 and 4 storied buildings of Colaba, and you can actually look into some of those terrace flats, and I mean, it's quite amazing,
And it's
some of
pretty
those terrace
panoramic,
flats.
that view, because, it's open from 3 sides, so you can see, like, different parts of the city from there.
Would you say that places like Bayview and Cafe Marina, is it only like people in the area who are familiar with it? Because I remember, obviously we've written about it a couple of times, and I remember at some point people telling me that, oh my God, don't write about Cafe Marina, you're going to, expose our favorite rooftop place.
No, it's Cafe Marina is quite well known.
It's quite
now,
well known,
I
and
think.
I think that there's just going to be more and more rooftop places opening up.
More more, I think, that will charge a premium. I don't think places like Cafe Marina and Bayview would be the odd ones out, because I think people have realized that with that kind of real estate, you can charge any sort of... I don't know, how was Sway priced?
Well, Sway was priced kind of, mid-level pricing.
Right.
I just went to Theory, which is like some premium pricing, where a cocktail is above, with taxes, definitely over 1,000 rupees.
Right.
At this place, I think there were about 650 rupees a cocktail.
Okay.
And they've tried to again be really... This is actually owned by the same guys who run Copa in Juhu and Dishkeo in BKC.
Right.
So what I think their whole thing is being slightly mid-level and accessible. So it wasn't too expensive. Like I said, it was packed, and it had like a very... I would say that the customer base was fairly wide-ranging. They were like people in their 20s, people in their 40s, like, all coming out not to have dinner but to just get some drinks. And so I would say that it's kind of in the mid-level. It's not so highly priced also that I think that you'll have to consider about it. And I think that goes with the kind of vibe that they're trying to create. It's slightly casual. It's not like fancy. So I think they're going to get more places like that. Because, slowly we're running out of real estate in this city, and like with most things, the only way is up. So people are just going to try and find more and more terrace places.
Yeah, which is not a bad...
it's not a bad thing, because it's so hot usually. Like, even if you sit in an outdoor section, you're better off sometimes sitting in the air condition. And the day I went to Sway, even though like it's pretty hot in the daytime, there was really great weather. It was a nice cool breeze. So I think it really ended up adding to my experience. I actually probably liked it more because it was so nice to be on a rooftop at that time.
So if you haven't been to some of these places, you have an excuse to go there, even though it's really hot. It's quite pleasant in the evenings. And look out for a review of Sway. It'll be on the website soon. And that's it for Bombay Binge. This time we'll see you next week. For more on what's happening in the city, read thedailypow.com. Also subscribe to our newsletter on the website. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're The Daily Pow. And you can find this podcast on the IndusVox Media SoundCloud page, as well as iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn.
If you like listening to the podcast, check out Made in India with May, the best Indian indie music podcast in the country.
Hey man, just help me out, man. I need some podcasts, man. I haven't had a fix in a week. Just need some.
Don't you worry about it. I got podcast galore for you, man. Just go to ivmpodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thanks, man. I'm gonna check it out.